They knew exactly what they felt about you. They just decided you shouldn't hear it, because if you did, you wouldn't stay, and they knew that too. But you felt it anyway. Not all at once. Not clearly. Just something shifted. No argument. No moment you could point to, just a change, subtle enough to ignore, strong enough to stay with you, the kind of change you try to explain away before you even understand it. You remember it, that half-second pause that wasn't there before. That smile that looked right, but didn't feel right. The tone that sounded normal, but left something cold behind it, nothing obvious. That's why it works. Because if it was obvious, you'd react. If it was clear, you'd leave. So it isn't. It's controlled. Measured. Just enough to pass as normal, and just wrong enough to make you uncomfortable, and you noticed. Immediately. But then something else happened. You started adjusting reality to protect yourself from what you noticed. You told yourself, maybe I imagine it, maybe they're just tired, maybe it's nothing. Not because you believed it, because it was easier than accepting the alternative, because once you accept it, you can't go back. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that's the real problem. Not what they feel, but what you're starting to understand. There's a version of every person they never show you, not the one they post, not the one they describe, not even the one they think they are. The real one lives in what they don't say. In the pauses, in the timing, in the things that almost happen but don't. That version doesn't perform. It slips for a second, sometimes less. And then it's gone again, covered up by politeness, by just enough effort to keep everything looking the same. But it's not the same. You feel that, even if you can't prove it, people don't lie the way you think they do. They don't need to invent stories. They just remove pieces of the truth. They edit, cut out what's dangerous, soften what's sharp, delay what would change everything. And what's left is believable. Almost real, close enough that you stop questioning it, a smile that almost reaches the eyes, attention that almost feels genuine, words that almost match the energy. Almost. And your brain does the rest, fills the gaps, smooths the edges, builds a version of reality that feels safe enough to stay in, because you want it to be real. Not perfect, just real enough. So you go back, replay conversations, not because you're confused, but because something didn't sit right. You look for consistency. Meaning. Proof that what you felt was wrong. But every time you replay it, you feel it again. That small disconnect, that quiet mismatch between what was said and what was there. And they don't line up. That's where the tension lives. Not in what happened, but in what didn't. Because nothing bad happened. No betrayal, no rejection, no clear moment you can point to. Just distance, slow, controlled, almost invisible, like something fading without ever admitting it's disappearing. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because you can't confront something that technically didn't happen. So instead, you confront yourself. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I'm creating a problem that isn't there. But your body doesn't agree. Your instincts don't agree. Because your brain listens to words, but your nervous system tracks patterns. And patterns don't lie. You start noticing things you wish you didn't. How fast they used to reply versus now. How conversations used to flow versus how they end. How curiosity slowly disappears. How effort becomes optional. Not gone. Just inconsistent. And inconsistency is harder to process than rejection, because rejection is clear. This ISN single quotes T. This keeps you thinking, keeps you analyzing, keeps you trying. You notice the way they look at you when they think you're not paying attention. That 1 second where there's nothing. No warmth, no interest. Just neutral. Real. And then it's gone, replaced instantly by something acceptable. Something you can't question without sounding irrational. And that's the trap, because now it's not about them. It's about your perception. And you start doubting it, but you shouldn't, because people always reveal themselves, just not all at once. In fragments. In leaks. In moments where they forget to maintain the version of themselves they want you to see. It's never in what they say. It's in what slips Through dot timing dot energy dot presence dot absence dot you don't need a confession to feel a shift dot because real emotions don't wait for permission to be visible dot they show up anyway dot in silence, in hesitation, in what's missing, and you feel it. That slow discomfort that doesn't go away, that sense that something is off, but not off enough to justify walking away dot so you stay, and without realizing it, you change, you become more careful, more observant, more controlled, you start editing yourself the same way they do, choosing words more carefully, watching reactions more closely, trying not to trigger whatever changed, trying to fix something no one admitted was broken. But here's the part you don't want to admit. You're not confused, you're aware, you just don't like what that awareness means, because if what you feel is real, then something between you already changed, and if that's true, then you're standing in a reality you haven't fully accepted yet, and that reality requires a decision you're not ready to make. So instead, you wait, you watch, you analyze, hoping the feeling fades, hoping you're wrong, hoping something will happen that explains everything in a way that doesn't hurt. But nothing happens. At least, not visibly. Because underneath, it keeps evolving. That feeling. It gets sharper, more specific, less deniable, until eventually, you stop asking, what's happening? And start asking something else. Something much harder to ignore. Why won't they just say it? Because they won't. Not the way you want. Not clean. Not direct. Not honest. Because honesty would cost them something, and people don't risk what still benefits them. Truth is expensive. It costs comfort, stability, access, control. And right now, they still have all of that. If they told you the truth, that they don't feel it anymore, you'd leave. If they admitted they've already checked out, you'd stop trying. If they said it clearly, everything would end instantly. No confusion, no delay, no second chances. Just over. So they don't, they stay in between, not here, not gone. Present enough to keep you attached, distant enough to protect themselves. That middle space is where they keep you, because ambiguity is more useful than truth. Truth closes doors. Ambiguity leaves them open, and people don't close doors they might need later. So they don't lie. They perform. Quietly. Precisely. Just enough warmth to reset your doubt. Just enough attention to keep you engaged. Just enough presence to make you question your instincts. Not consistency. Just fragments, and fragments are dangerous, because your mind tries to complete them. To turn pieces into meaning, signals into certainty, silence into something that makes sense, but there's nothing to complete, because what you're trying to rebuild doesn't exist anymore, and deep down, they know that. They know exactly how little is required to keep you from walking away. They don't need to give you truth, they just need to give you enough. Enough to pause your decision, enough to keep hope alive, because hope is leverage. Hope keeps you waiting, hope keeps you explaining things for them, hope makes you stay longer than you should. Hope turns absence into maybe, and maybe is where people get stuck the longest. You're not holding onto them, you're holding onto potential, a version of them that only exists in your interpretation, and they don't correct it, because correcting it would end everything. So they let you believe, they let you fill the gaps, they let you do the emotional work they stopped doing a long time ago. And you do it. You reinterpret effort that isn't there, you assign meaning to silence, you convince yourself that inconsistency is temporary, but it's not. It's the pattern, and patterns don't accidentally repeat. They reveal direction. And the direction here is away from you. Slowly. Carefully. Without ever saying it, because saying it would make it real. And as long as it's not said, they don't have to face it. And neither do you. But here's what you keep avoiding. It already happened. You didn't lose them in one moment, you lost them in 1,000 small ones. In the delayed replies, in the missing effort, in the conversations that stopped going anywhere. In the way they became less curious, less present, less there. Nothing dramatic. That's why you stayed, because nothing broke. It just faded. Quietly. Cleanly. Without a scene. And that's what makes it harder, because there's nothing to fight, nothing to confront, Nothing you can point to and say, this is where it ended, so you keep searching. For a reason. For a moment. For something clear enough to justify letting go. But clarity isn't coming, because they won't give it to you. Clarity would force action, and action would cost them access to you. So they stay vague. Warm one day, distant the next. Just enough variation to keep you uncertain, and uncertainty is addictive, because your brain keeps trying to solve it. To stabilize it. To get back to what it was, but what it was is gone, and the version you're trying to return to doesn't exist anymore. That's why it feels off. That's why it never fully clicks back, because you're trying to rebuild something they've already left behind, and this is the moment most people avoid. They're not hiding their feelings because they're confused. They're hiding them because they're clear that it's different now, clear that it's less, clear that saying it out loud would destroy the version of reality you're both still pretending to be in. So they don't say it. They dilute it, delay it. Bury it under behavior that looks acceptable on the surface. But underneath, it's already decided, and you feel that before you can explain it, before you can prove it. You feel it in the pauses, in the distance, in what's missing, that absence that no words can cover, that quiet realization that it's no longer mutual. And this is where everything shifts. You don't need them to confirm it. You don't need a conversation. You don't need closure. You don't need their honesty. Because what you felt was never random. It was a reaction to something real, even if it was never said, even if it was never acknowledged. Because real emotions don't wait for permission. They show up anyway. And the longer you ignore them, the more they distort everything. Until one day, it's no longer subtle. It's obvious, not because they changed suddenly, but because you stopped adjusting reality to protect yourself from it. And when that happens, everything becomes clear. Not easier, but undeniable. You see them without interpretation, without excuses. Without rewriting what's in front of you, just truth. Raw, uncomfortable, final. And you realize something you've been avoiding the entire time. They didn't hide it well, you just didn't want to see it clearly. They showed you. In fragments, in patterns, in everything that didn't match their words, and you understood from the beginning. You just kept waiting for them to say it in a way that wouldn't hurt. But that version of the truth doesn't exist. It never did, because truth doesn't soften itself to protect you. It doesn't wait until you're ready. It just becomes visible. And when it does, you have to choose. Stay in the version of reality that feels familiar, or accept the one that's actually real, because deep down, you already know which one this is. You always did, you just didn't want it to be true.